At that time when you were going to become a wrestler, was there like an apprenticeship that they did with you? Did you learn, now they've got schools and stuff you go to. But was that sort of how it was set up? You just sort of learned from taking your own bumps and stuff?
Well, I don't know. I don't know how guys got into it. And still to this day, almost everybody gets into the business a different way. I sort of lied my way in. I really did. I kept asking Jackie Fargo. He wouldn't, he kept saying, stick with art. And one day, and we actually had a little art studio that they had formed. He and Eddie Bond, a country music singer that was a partner of his, had formed like a thing called Bond Fargo Sign Company. And this was in like 1970 or 69. Yeah, 1970. And so this was before, if you had a painting company and you drove around in your pickup truck to your jobs, this is before the time where they had stick-on letters on the side of your car or on your truck. You had to go to a sign company, and somebody like me would sit there and hand letter the name of your company, and like your legal company here. I would be out there writing, Jerry, and painting on the side of your truck. That's what they formed the company and had me doing. And so I'm just sitting in there one day between jobs, and all of a sudden this young wrestler, speaking of Jerry, this young wrestler, this young guy comes walking in the door. His name was Jerry Vickers. Never forget. He comes in and he says, "Hey, is Jackie Fargo around?" And I said, "No, he's not here yet." I said, "Can I help you?" And he said, "Well, I just, I'm a young wrestler and I just came down from St. Louis area and I wanted to talk to him about getting some work here in the Memphis area." And I looked at this guy, and he wasn't much bigger than me, and I thought, this guy could be a wrestler. I don't know why I couldn't be.
Yeah.
So, and I told him, I said, "Well, you know what?" I said, I've been hounding Jackie myself to try to get a match or something under my belt, and this guy said, "Well," he immediately saw me. He saw a mark, which is what we sometimes call wrestling fans. He saw a mark in me sitting there. He says, "So you want to be a wrestler, but you've never wrestled before?" And I said, "No." And he said, "Well, first of all, you'd have to have some boots. Do you have any boots?" I said, "No." He said, "What about trunks or tights?" "No." He said, "Well, you know what? I might just happen to have an extra pair of boots and some tights I could sell you." And so really? So I've wound up buying a pair of trunks or tights and a pair of wrestling boots from this guy. And then he tells me, he said, "I'm actually wrestling. There's a little independent wrestling company over in West Memphis, Arkansas." And he said, the promoter's name is Aubrey Griffith, and he's
Competing with Memphis wrestling.
well, you might call it competing with Memphis wrestling, but nobody in Memphis even knew about this thing.
Yeah.
It was in an old abandoned theater, Avon Theater in West Memphis, which is sort of like the Ritz. It's across the street here. It had been just remodeled, or not remodeled, but what this guy had done, they didn't use it. It was like probably condemned or whatever, but he went in and rented it, took out about 20 rows of seats and put a ring down at the front where the people could look, sitting like you're watching a movie. Now you got in front of the screen, you got a ring. And I'll never forget, he had built his own ring light up above the ring, and it was like one of those big wash tubs, of galvanized steel wash tub with about 4 200-watt light bulbs sticking down out of it, right? But when I looked at it, I thought it was like Madison Square Garden. So anyway, Jerry Vickers said, "Yeah." He said they do some wrestling over on Saturday nights over in West Memphis. And I sort of got ahead of myself here because Jackie Fargo and Eddie Bond had also, I was like a stooge for them. I mean, I was having to go for jobs and everything. And Eddie was the program director at a radio station, little tiny radio station, KWAM, 990 on the dial. And they had given me an air shift. Actually, I worked like 7 to midnight on the radio because nobody else wanted that shift. So I'm sitting there playing country music every night on the radio.
It was a good commentator experience for the future.
It was very good commentator experience for the future. So anyway, this guy says, "Yeah, I'll take you over to," Jerry Vickers says, "I'll take you over and meet Aubrey Griffith, and maybe he said, first of all, don't tell him that you've never wrestled. He said, just tell him if he asks you if you wrestled before, say, yeah, down in Florida you wrestled some. So I said, okay. So sure enough, the next day we drive over to West Memphis, and I'd never even been inside a wrestling ring. So we drive over there, and here's this little grizzled old veteran wrestler who had probably wrestled in Memphis years ago and was retired now and putting on these little shows that would draw maybe 100, 150 people. So shake hands with him. Hey, Aubrey Griffith, how are you? And Jerry Vickers says, yeah, this is Jerry Lawler, and he's a friend of mine, and he was looking to see if you got any openings for any matches. He'd like to come and work for you some, Aubrey. And he looked at me and said, first question, hey, you ever wrestled before, kid? I said, yes, sir. He said, yeah, where'd you wrestle? I said, oh, down in Florida. He said, really, who'd you wrestle for down there? And this is what my face looked like. Because Jerry didn't tell me who I had wrestled for.
You didn't know the territories even then.
Yeah, and I think he could tell by my facial expressions right then that I was lying, right? And he said, well, it doesn't matter. He said, I really don't have anything right now, but leave me your number, and if something comes up, I'll give you a call. So we're getting blown off, right? So all of a sudden, I pulled out my ace in the sleeve, or up my sleeve, and I said, well, I was just thinking that if I was wrestling over here for you, I could probably plug it on my radio show. I'm on the radio every night from 7 to midnight on KWAM radio. And he went, you could plug my matches on your radio station for free? I said, oh, yes, sir, no problem. And he said, all right, I'll tell you what, you and Jerry Vickers are going to be in the main event Saturday night against the Executioners. And I went, oh, my goodness. So anyway, that's how I had my first match. Never stepped foot in a ring before. And when the bell rang for our match, all I could think of was what I had seen. You know, my dad and I were big wrestling fans, and we went to the Memphis matches and see the real wrestlers, I called them at the time. I mean, throwing each other out of the ring and all this kind of stuff. And I'll never forget, there was this young Mexican wrestler named Young Anaya, and he was wrestling the Blue Infernos, and we were wrestling the Executioners, these guys with white masks and everything. And I had seen this move that just really impressed me, where... Oh, excuse me, I keep hitting this thing with my Superman ring. But anyway, this Blue Inferno guy grabbed young Anaya by the hair and by his tights, and he ran him all the way across the ring and threw him out between the top and middle rope. And I'll never forget it. I mean, he went sailing head first, had his hands tucked down between by his side. He didn't grab the ropes to break his fall or anything. He flew right out of the ring, and when he hit the floor, he kind of tumbled over and I just thought, oh my gosh, that looked so fantastic, right? So Jerry Vickers started the match with one of the guys, and so then finally he comes and he tags me, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what do? I get in the ring, and this guy grabs me, and I just said, throw me out of the ring. So I'm thinking, here I am, I'm going to do the Young Anaya move, right? So sure enough, he grabs me by the hair, tights, throws me. I put my hands down on my side, and I'm sailing through the air. And the next thing I remember, I'm in a chair like this. And Jerry Vickers has got a towel and he's fanning me, right? And I'm going, and I've kind of come to. And I said, what happened? And he said, well, what do you remember? And I said, I remember getting thrown out of the ring, and then I just heard a big bang. He said, yeah, that was your head hitting the concrete floor. And he said, our match lasted about 2 minutes because of that. He said, you were knocked out. We just now got you back to the back.
Dang.
But I loved it, and that was the start. And then, and so finally, after I went over there about 3 times, and Jackie Fargo and Eddie Bond had heard me. They never knew about the wrestling over there, but they heard me doing commercials for it.
I got you.
And that night, and then they came to me and said, look, you got to stop messing with that stuff. Jackie was like insulted. That was he thought it was competition to him, which it really wasn't. But he said, all right, kid, if I get you a match for Nick Goulas and the Memphis Wrestling, will you stop messing with that stuff over there? And I said, oh, yes, sir.
Yeah.
So sure enough, I mean, and to show you how dumb I was, I thought being on TV made you the big star. And so he said, all right, I'll get you a match next week. You'll be on TV. against the interns, which was the real big mass guys, right? And so, even though I got beat in about 30 seconds and just slaughtered and slammed and they did everything to me, and then pinned me. I thought that was the greatest thing in the world. I said, man, I'm a TV star now, star wrestler.
Yeah, well,
Wasn't
far
then
from the truth.
I went for I don't know 6 months of just getting beat up every Saturday morning on TV, but I loved it.